Welcome to MarcusG.tv. I'm Chef Marcus Giuliano, and I'm a chef on a mission. Today's mission is spirits, bar selections. So what's the question, Jamie? What's one of the most common questions we get here at the restaurant?
Sure. So we have a lot of spirits behind the bar, independently owned spirits. So we get the question quite a bit, why do you choose the spirits and how do you choose the spirits that you have behind the bar?
Yes. We have a great selection and a lot of people love our selection. But there's certain people who don't understand why we don't have Grey Goose or Absolute or Johnnie Walker. But once we explain, I think we convert most of those people, don't we?
We sure do.
I would say 99% of the people we convert. There's only very few people that say, well, I need my Budweiser, I need my Grey Goose, I can't have a drink here. And those are the 1%. Those, it's unfortunate when you hear that because I think it's being very close-minded. So here's the theory of how we stock our bar. We have 250 craft beers, we have 300 wines, and probably 300 spirits. So we look for independent distilleries, independent brands that actually have an owner, an operator that we could call and speak to. We could never call and speak to the owner of Grey Goose or to Patron. We could never speak to the owner of Johnnie Walker, of Drambuie, of Chambord. These are brands. They're not per se distilleries, they're brands. So what happens is, like for instance, Bombay never even had a distillery. They're part of a brand that was created out of thin air. And that happens a lot that we think of, Grey Goose. It's not some place you'd go, so let's go visit the Grey Goose distillery and have a good time there. It was a brand that was created and then sold off and then became this big, part of a big conglomerate. So here's what we do. We go to a lot of spirit tastings. We have a lot of distributors that come in, salespeople that come in and to show stuff off to us. And we're very selective because we want to make sure that when you give us your dollar, that dollar goes through us and back to a place where they're actually creating a viable job market in a viable community somewhere. So for example, we all know the Rolling Rock commercial, Latrobe, PA, and it was this beautiful picturesque advertisement about Latrobe. Well, those commercials are long gone. You want to know why? That's because when Budweiser bought them, they shut the plant down, hundreds of people lost their jobs, and Rolling Rock is actually made in Newark, New Jersey at the Budweiser plant. Johnnie Walker was bought by Diageo. Hundreds and hundreds of people lost their job when they shut the plant down because these big companies can do it more effectively than small distilleries. So what they do is they're not interested in the real estate, they're not interested in the employees, they're not really interested per se about all of that. They're interested in the brand. That's all they want. So they buy these companies, and if they can, they will shut the distillery down and move production and forget about what's happening in the community. Now, Goose Island is another great example here because they were bought out by Budweiser, InBev Budweiser, and swore nothing was going to change at all, right? Well, their 312 beer, which is the area code of Chicago, their 312 beer, the production immediately got shipped to 315 area code, which is upstate New York in one of the Budweiser production plants. So their most popular beer, they figured out, well, we can make it cheaper somewhere else. Now, of course, Goose Island still has a brewery. You can still go visit them, and the owner is on as the acting CEO or whatever he does. But in reality, things have changed. The corporate culture has changed there, and they've made some alterations. And the bottom line is, if I were to buy Goose Island, your money would be going to InBev, Anheuser-Busch, where they own 200 brands of beer and they do cutthroat business. I don't feel that your dollar or my dollar deserves to go to a company like that. But it goes across the board. When you walk into a restaurant and a bar and you look behind the bar, it literally is brand after brand after brand. You have companies like Pernod Ricard, which owns Absolute, Seagram's, Jameson, Jacob's Creek Wine, Beefeaters, Kahlua, Canadian Club, Maker's Mark, Mumm, Pierre Juillet, Coburn's. Then you have Diageo, which owns another 150 brands, like Dom Perignon, Guinness. Yes, they own Guinness. They own tons of scotches, probably 20 or 30 scotches. They own Captain Morgan's. It's just amazing to see what they own. Ciroc. You can go down the list. Brown-Forman, which is another one. Sure, it might be partially family-owned Brown-Forman, but they go in and they do cutthroat business just like anybody else. Bacardi, who is family-owned still, but they go in and do cutthroat business. It's not about going in and buying a distillery, buying a brand, and respecting the community. It's for them, it's a business as usual. They go in, they disassemble, they put their corporate culture in place, and that's it. And they want to make money at the expense of jobs, at the expenses of communities. So Beam Global, Remy Martin, I mean, William Grant, the list goes on and on and on. And these are the handful of international massive conglomerates that just trade brands around and go buy brands. And this is what you see when you walk into restaurants. We were at a Bordeaux tasting recently, Bordeaux wines, the big 2010 vintage kickoff in New York. We go to it every year. And this year in the guidebook, it was interesting, because through the guidebook that we got, up on the top of each page, it listed the owners of the vineyards. Out of, Jamie, how many Bordeaux chateaus were there? Hundreds of chateaus, right?
Lots.
I would say more than 3/4 of the chateaus, the Bordeaux wines that were there, were owned by investment groups and banks, right, Jamie? And insurance companies.
Yeah.
And insurance companies. I'm sorry, but I don't want Geico to own the Bordeaux wine or the Chateau or any winery that I'm buying from. I don't associate Geico or Allstate in the wine business, but they know that they can make money, so they go in and buy these chateaus, and that's just an investment for them, and they're there to manage numbers, cut expenses, at the cost of nothing, because they don't care what's really going on in the community. They're there to make money. Else they wouldn't have bought it. They're not there because they love wine and they want to have a hobby. But the person who's working the business every day, who's had it in his family, that's the guy who has the passion and the love for the business. And he's there. He might not be making the most money. He might be making a decent living. He might just be getting by, but that's where his passion is. That's what he wants to do. 75% of those chateaus from Bordeaux were owned by investment groups, insurance companies, companies that are there just to make money. So when we went through the guide, I didn't want to taste their wine. I want to go have a conversation with the guy who owns the winery, the winemaker, and understand that they're there because the love is there, and that's what they're doing. So that's the theory behind all of our stuff at the bar here at Aroma Time. We handpick the selections. Local's great, and believe me, we have vodka from 6 local counties. We have lots of local gin, lots of local cultures from New York State. We have all that stuff, but let's face it, cognac isn't local. So we buy Celt cognac. Oliver Celt is the owner. I've gotten a personal email from him inviting me to the distillery in Cognac, France. That's the kind of relationships I want. That's what we're striving here for at Aroma Time. And we're never going to have that if we support the big, massive conglomerates. And on a last note, I'm an independent business. Jamie and I work very hard on our independent business, and it would be wrong of me to say support an independent business and then for me to turn around and support international conglomerates because I want to save a few bucks and make more money. That on my part would be totally wrong. When you give us your dollar, I want to make sure your dollar is coming to an independent like myself and then going to another independent. I want that to trickle down to where it's going to make a difference, where the owner's paying for dance lessons for his daughter, or they're taking a family vacation, as opposed to a CEO being able to buy a 3rd or 4th vacation home. These CEOs from these big companies make outrageous money, and they get paid on numbers. And when they go in, they're there to cut. When they buy a distillery, when they buy a new operation, they're there to cut costs and get bigger bonuses and buy another vacation home. And for me, I'm sorry, that's not the way I want to do business. I would love a vacation home, but for me, I'm not going to go about it that way. Your dollar matters, independent matters. Thank you here for supporting us at Aroma Time Bistro. We appreciate it. So that's why we don't have some of the well-known brands, and that's why we have what we have. So thank you for watching. We'll see you soon.